This video, using my tablet again. I wish my situation was different. For my few subscribers, it could be irritating and probably for some people even make them dizzy to see this always moving around. But this video is kind of a realization and kind of a sharing, something that dawned on me.
Well, I have to actually make some fries. Could I do something?
And this is kind of this is the Holy Spirit moving me, to teach me, my own arrogance, my own, even my own need to visit a confessional, intellectual arrogance, and what's the word I'm looking for? Blindsidedness, But I'm thinking, specifically of a lot of homeless veterans that they went through the issues with the VA, and they may have gotten somewhere, or maybe it's not enough. That's why they created these homeless voucher programs, which are helpful to a certain point, but the case management is scant, and a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, we do some case management, but we leave it at the housing agencies." Housing agencies, they don't have the staff to do case management. So what happens is a lot of people get almost no case management, which in the VA system means you get pushed into the disability channel, regardless how disabled you are. You may only have, let's say, best case scenario, 20% rating. That's not enough to live on. That's most state welfare programs. That's not going to get a veteran on their feet. They're 20%. They have a lot of abilities, even alongside their disabilities, but they're not, given the opportunity and the empowerment and the support to move past that. So they end up homeless again. And these programs are great, but when they're made by people who could care less, they're looking for good numbers at the end, for time for budgeting, and for some of them for election time, and other times for after election time so they can get reappointed. So it's things, there's not enough support there, and so you see a lot of veterans that are homeless. We got the 22 a day. That's the biggest shame on our country. Up to 22 veterans are lost by their own hand a day. That's a shame on this country. It's a shame. And it could be, something as much as a veteran denying medical care to prolong their life. They're like, no, just let me go. Or it could be something, a veteran who takes their own life. And they're both the same thing, part of the 22. And it's a shame on this country, an absolute shame. And, we have the liberal side, which is let's create a ton of programs and say that we're helping veterans. The conservative side is, let's cut a bunch of programs and only focus on the ones that statistics say we're helping them. And that's that. Neither side is helping us. Neither side. And, it doesn't matter if you appoint a veteran, of a short-term conflict, or somebody who is a reservist, or a National Guardsman, or woman, or somebody who was an officer for one reserve tour, which is 6 years. That's your commission, 6 years. Everything after that can be done in the reserve. Unless you're doing certain federal service, which you have to go IRR. But or you're a contractor, you have to go IRR.
I want to make a deal.
Or a DOD civilian, you have to go IRR. But
forget the deal with my father.
People who are really boots on the ground, who had the real military experience, especially somebody who is forward deployed and they were under fire. These are the people who've seen things. And then they've seen, the most pronounced side. And then the people who've seen the subtle side, the things that happen in storeroom, supply offices, planning offices, operational offices. Those are the people who are in the rear. You need both. The best appointee to a military department, or we'll say an intelligence department, is the person who's seen both. But rarely do we get that. I mean, it's good to have at least one. But then again, you want somebody that had a lot of experience in the military or as a contractor or civilian. That way they have a big picture, and which is a step. Some people step from DOD to VA. And the VA part, especially, you need somebody who's seen both sides. As varied experience as possible. And if you can grab a Mustang, that's best. Somebody that went enlisted to officer or enlisted to warrant, that's the best recruit right there for some of these positions. And that's why when we're down at the bottom, us normal people, we're not getting the leadership we need. The people who really know what they're doing, who see beyond policy, who see beyond budget cuts, who see beyond party affiliations, who see beyond, congressional or presidential mission statements. They see beyond it. We don't get that enough. So you have a lot of vets who have problems with staying on their feet, getting on their feet, and addiction too. This was the whole inspiration by the Holy Spirit. When you have people, facing different addictions, speaking of veterans, like pain medicine addictions, a lot of people that have come back, and are financially, they saved money, their wives or their husbands did, who were back home, saved money or got bonuses or were medically retired. They invested in things like the marijuana industry, which, if you've got the right investors, you got good people with good backgrounds, it's great. Because then they can get the necessary clearances to, engage with the pharmaceutical industry and with medical industry, to really, really use cannabis for all of its benefits. But if you have people with shadowy backgrounds, or they don't want to give their background, or they have some kind of a serious criminal history, or some kind of, they're living off of an identity that's barely there, it's so they can work in the marijuana industry, then, that particular grow or dispensary, they're not going to go very far. Because the people that can really grow their business, they want people that can pass a background check. And, it's important to have these people in your companies. That way the people that have had problems in the past, they can turn to them and say, look, I know you had problems in the past and you want to do things like this. You're a part of our company now. We welcome you. You've moved past your past, but we're not going to repeat your mistakes. So they put binders on them. They're like, no, you will not be doing this. And you're not going to do this if this is tight or this is compromised. You will not do this. That way it just reins in the stuff that's absolutely goes insane. Or the chemist, chemistry gone awry. You got mad chemists in back labs of grows, developing new blends or developing new juices that have not been tested, let alone animal testing. They haven't been tested on anything. And then you have grows that stuff happens, people get sick, people get injured or they die, and then the grow, their license is revoked. After an investigation is done, they find out it was the chemist's fault, and everybody, investors of the grow, let him do it. So then everybody loses their licensing capability for life. And that's a big investment, a lot of money gone. If you, like I always tell my daughter, if you do things right the first time, you don't have to redo them. It's just paying attention to detail, doing the right thing. And if you realize you made a mistake, you correct it immediately. So, when veterans invest in marijuana industry and they start using a lot, or they have a Vicodin problem, or maybe a drinking problem, or you have other veterans that may have a, really poor family network, and that's a significant thing right there. That's just as equally damaging as an addiction problem, is having a poor family support network. I have a little bit of involvement, but I support them, mad support for them. Miracle messengers. They help people who are homeless find their family members so they can get back on track. And sometimes it has good ending, sometimes it doesn't. But the people are there to help regardless what happens with family. And this is a great group. And the biggest thing that we learn in our discussions, people who are getting involved with it, is social support is the biggest problem for veterans. And a lot of social support agencies, they want to look good. Helping veterans, there's a lot of money, but sometimes it's just face value. It's just, under a camera, or while somebody, that's got a long name tag with lots of initials is there on site. But after all of that's gone and they're in the parking lot, they don't care. Just want to pad their hours for the day, so they're gone from that office. It's annoying. So they're gone all day. And nobody's getting help while they're gone. You're gone in an 8-hour day. You visit 8 veterans, minus your half an hour, 45-minute for lunch. That's 7 to 8 veterans in a day. And you do that. You do that for a week. You're lucky if you visited 30 veterans in a week. So those veterans who are repeatedly vulnerable, and they may be suffering from addiction, and there's no help for them to move forward, no hope to grasp onto. Even the ones that find God, they find Christ, and they may find chaplains or ministers or priests, or if other religions, imam or a rabbi. And if it's not somebody that doesn't understand how to implement hopeful, outcomes, then all that veteran's going to get is a lot of cliches. Like, oh, hold on, it's going to get better. Or, I'm not a cliche person, not at all. I'd rather see action, something. And if there's nothing to give somebody hope, then we have a problem. Another cliche is like, oh, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. It's right in, I think Paul wrote it. I forget which book, but St. Paul wrote it. But you got that. I think it's also from Hebrew scriptures too, Jewish scriptures. And let's see, another cliche. From hard times grows great character. People throw the cliches at people who are, suffering from some kind of, chronic homelessness or addiction, battles with addiction. Cliches don't help them. And so this is the arrogance part that the Holy Spirit informed me. We always help people. I'll always, if we help somebody, I'll give them, options. What are the resources? Because they always need help for food or they're always homeless. And they may accept or reject. Or sometimes, they'll just tell me a story of why those people won't help them. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll pray for you. Or, hoping for the best. So I myself am guilty of that too. I'm just giving them a cliche, which is not helpful at all to somebody battling homelessness or addiction. So I need to, well, first we need to better our situation before I can really, really help people the way that I should, because we're vulnerable ourselves, very vulnerable. But out of my own arrogance and my own need to visit a confessional, I just see sometimes for some people why they are, repetitively homeless, why they are repetitively, drunk or suffering from, some kind of drug addiction. They're hopeless and they have to deal with chronic pain. That's right there. That's a risk factor for being one of the 22. Many of the cases of people who we've lost are those two things: chronic pain, battling chronic homelessness or addiction, and failed social supports. Usually, if those three boxes are checked, we're at a risk to lose somebody, one of our brothers or one of our sisters. And so, the Holy Spirit showed me that sometimes when people are repeatedly made hopeless, they're even that small, tiny grain of hope is ripped out from them. Then, they'll have a multitude of reactions. One of them is, I don't care anymore, nothing matters. The other one is, there's no hope for me. Maybe God has abandoned me too. Another one was, oh yeah, nobody is there for me because I'm just, a has been or a waste of time. Or some people might be, especially true for older vets. I'm becoming one. There's so limited things that I can do to take care of my family. I don't want to become a burden. This is a thing that older males especially will think of. Um, Actually, older females too. I don't want to be exclusive. My grandmother used to say this. You don't want to be a burden on people when you can't give back to the situation. It's not a two-way relationship. It's a one-way relationship.
Open casket.
And good people will find that uncomfortable.
And I see a boy, a teenage boy.
So
Son of a woman who had died.
You can repeatedly see
in the casket. All the words
these people who are in bad situations that are hopeless, that are falling back into their homelessness or their addiction or their, negative patterns because there's no hope. This is specifically targeting Christians, especially Catholics. Hope from a great confession, a great rosary, a great adoration, and then receiving the Eucharist. These are all tangible things. This is what makes us unique. We have these tangible things. Orthodox too. The Orthodox, Lutherans, and Episcopalians and Anglicans. We all have these things. Which is, it's tangible and it's helpful.
I don't know.
But there's a time, even that the effects of the sacrament will diminish. And then, you will have to re-energize your faith. And it can become a struggle. I know when events happen because, repeatedly my Catholic faith people have, found it to be undesirable for me. I'll put it that way. Something that they didn't want me to engage in. And I'm glad I'm back now. But there's been times when I was homeless. That's one of the reasons why I was, and I offered some kind of ministry with the diocese, but I guess it's God's will that I don't do it.
Have you started? Yes.
The diocese, our bishops in this diocese are very good. The bishops in the eparchy are very good,
Which one?
both Eastern and Western rites. We have great people, but somebody that works at the diocese, actually a fellow.
Is it bad for her?
He's a deacon. I'm not. I can't say fellow,
And?
but he said, we'd like you to get on your feet, then pray about things and get involved, in a church in the diocese, and we'll see what God moves, your people in your church and you and the diocese. He said, but as far as actively saying, hey, yeah, come and join this class, or yeah, come and help with us doing this, is like, because your family doesn't agree with this and you are kicked out, we don't want somebody homeless or suffering because they choose to be active in the Catholic faith. So he's like, we just want to let you know that the bishop actually told me to call you. And he said, we want you to hang in there, keep active, go to mass, go to confession, keep moving towards getting your situation fixed. And, the diocese is always here. Every, parish, the parishes always have open doors.
We found a lady.
Um,
A sad homeless lady.
Especially for somebody in a situation like me. And
She was just sitting there.
so that was our discussion. That was a long time ago now.
We were passing by.
But I remember my struggles. There's some weeks that there was so much of a struggle, to be in a homeless shelter that is non-Catholic. There's a few Catholics that I connected with, actually a couple of Catholic veterans, and I tried to plant a seed the best I could. They were actually going to go with me to the canonization in Detroit for Saint Solanus Casey, but because my job, in the end, I think I gave the tickets back to the diocese. But they were all going to come with me.
What was your father like?
We had some guys that went through a lot of hard times. Sometimes bad wives, sometimes a couple of bad wives. Sometimes they battled with, with partying, others with just drinking.
I'm gonna go visit the lady again.
Some of them, battled with other things, being, one was a single father for a long time, and he was targeted so much. Because he had, what, 2 daughters, 3 daughters? He was targeted so much. And,
here's this guy.
yeah, but they were going to go, just to try to, a once-in-a-lifetime thing, Somebody from Michigan, somebody who, although he didn't have a direct connection to Saginaw County, Saint Father Solanus Casey, a lot of Capuchin friars came up here that knew him, so that's the connection. And some of those same Capuchin friars that knew him, or were friends of his friends, used to run the charismatic ministry. They used to run the Hispanic ministry. So it just shows how small the Catholic world is, and it's awesome. But we didn't get to go. But there's tangible things like that help people. And actually, these guys kind of, in a way, they were like little. How could I put it? In a way, they were little. How could I put it? Gosh, I can't think of the right word. In a way, they're like being stinkers, and actually help kick the VA in the butt so that my daughter and I got our voucher processing faster. It's a long story that I'm not going to put here, but they were stinkers a couple of times, partied, and yeah, they were stinkers, and they got tired of me praying and talking about the rosary or inviting them, even though they were Catholic too. And so they're like, all right, we're going to move you to another part of the shelter, another connected agency, and we're going to fast track your voucher. So I'm like, so this is good and bad. But I remember one of the guys reached out. He's like, don't be mad at us. We love you. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but
Tell me when it's time for you to.
that's what brothers do.
All your glory.
Brothers in faith. Sometimes they do things and you don't understand it. Just be patient. But
one more to go.
Before love.
they,
It's tricky.
these are the kind of things you have to give people some kind of tangible
I
hope, something.
But
Because cliches don't work.
so full of love now.
And if we don't give people tangible hope, sometimes the tangible hope is, in my experience, is going to Mass almost daily. You're allowed to receive the Eucharist once a day, non-clergy, once a day.
Okay.
If you're clergy, sometimes several times a day. Big church, you're a deacon or a priest, it could be several times a day. But because if we don't give people tangible hope, even if we don't have anything to offer, at least, find a way to help them pray rosary every day. Maybe if they're Eastern Catholic, say the Kumbaskini beads, the Jesus prayer. Maybe prayer cells. There's things to do. Adoration and daily Mass. These are things that can keep people going when the tangible and the resources, the non-religious tangible resources, are weak, or you don't, know how to use them or get them. But giving somebody cliches and, attaboys and stuff, for people who are struggling with these kind of things, it's not going to help them. And I think, this is, like I said, the Holy Spirit pushed this on me. It's very, very applicable to people involved in various kinds of addiction ministries and treatment ministries. Sometimes you need more than the tangible spiritual. But if you don't have any more than the tangible spiritual, then make sure the tangible spiritual is there for them every single day.